I think it can be particularly difficult when you feel like your partner doesn't support you when you're anxious. I've had clients say to me, even those that are presenting in secure, healthy dynamics, that their partner still doesn't get the anxious attachment. One of the reasons that I'm so proud to have started the attachment recovery gym is to be able to provide a space where people that experience anxiety in their relationships and dating, to be able to provide a space where you feel supported, where you feel like people get you. And that isn't always that common. You're more likely to experience people saying, I just don't get it. You're more likely to experience people just seeing it that you have jealousy issues or that you're an overthinker, that you're making things up. And that's so hard because it means that you don't feel seen, you don't feel understood. So, that is a huge driving force behind me creating this online space for you. So, let's talk about feeling unsupported by your partner when you're anxious. And I'll also think as well towards the end about managing that and how you can help yourself and how you can help each other. Let's just remind ourselves of that moment when anxiety takes over. Our thoughts spiral, our body, the physical sensations, we get tense, we feel overwhelmed. But in those moments, especially for anxious attachment, you will feel like you just need the support of someone else. Understandably, you turn to your partner for support, and sometimes you don't get what you're looking for. And that can feel like, a punch to the stomach. Like you need that comfort, reassurance, just someone to hold space for you. And instead, you might be met with silence or frustration, even dismissal, in worst cases, criticism. And if this sounds familiar, then I really do think it's important to say I've genuinely worked with people that present with this. Of course, we have to be really mindful. Someone who criticizes you and tells, gaslights you and things like that, that's very different sometimes to someone who is meeting you with silence or perhaps some frustration because they don't get it. So there is a kind of continuum there for us to think about. You need to really be able to tell the difference between whether you are engaging in a relationship and looking for support with someone who most of the time is actually secure enough to hold space for you. In an ideal world, our partners would respond to our anxiety with empathy, comfort, understanding. But in reality, many people, they don't know how to support someone in these moments, especially if they don't understand the nature of anxiety and attachment styles. It can just seem like, oh, that's just jealousy. If we really don't know what those fears are behind, or we don't know why you're constantly asking if you like me, if I love you, if I've upset you, those kind of things. For those of us with an anxious attachment, it comes from a deep fear of rejection, right? Of abandonment. It's not just about the situation at hand. It's not just about the fact that they're taking longer to text back or they've come home later. It's about the deeper fear that we might not be loved, that we're going to be left alone, that they're, would rather spend time with someone else. And the fear is really intense and it can lead us to seek reassurance and to ask lots of questions, to get angry, to start fights, to withdraw, lots of reactions that can happen. And we know it's coming from a place of anxiety. It doesn't always look like that from the outside, which is why we really need to learn how to communicate our anxiety. Some partners, they don't know how to navigate these moments, either because they haven't been taught how to respond or because perhaps they feel overwhelmed themselves in this situation. So they might not now know how to offer the support that's needed. It's probably quite important to say here that one of the presentations of someone with anxious attachment is to be quite kind of unclear and confusing in how they explain things when they're triggered, because it's often so jumbled up in your own mind and it doesn't always come out making the best sense either. And then if you think about it, when we feel unsupported, if you don't get that support that you need in that moment, it's really easy to internalize that as well, that I'm not enough, they don't care about me. And in that moment, you begin to feel even more unloved, more misunderstood, rejected, and it amplifies that anxiety, which then just there's this vicious cycle where the anxiety itself triggers more conflict in the relationship in this moment and more anxiety in you. And then you're really trying to explain, what was the original issue? And now that you don't care about me. And so we go in these loops, and the other person is becoming just as confused. And probably you end up having a conflict about something that wasn't even the issue in the first place. We can feel even more isolated then in our anxiety. And that's when the shame and the confusion and the upset gets kicked in to gear as well. I always suggest that one of the first steps is really having an open conversation about your needs before you get into an anxious spiral, to really be able to explain this as clearly as possible. When things are calm, talking to your partner about what kind of support helps you when you're anxious. Maybe you need a listening ear, a comforting touch, words of reassurance. It's really important to be clear, because remember, not everyone knows what it looks like to support or to experience this kind of anxiety. You can make it clear that you're aware it's anxiety, you're aware of the challenges, and that you need support navigating this. It's still going to be their choice whether they're able to show up for that. And from that point, the two of you can work things out and decide if it's possible. You're also going to need to manage your expectations as well. On my course, Becoming Secure, we talk about expectations, because your partner might not always be able to provide the support you need in the way that you want. And it's not because they don't care, but because they have different coping strategies. Like I said, they might not fully understand the anxiety, and they may not be able to show up in the way that you want them to. Try to approach the situation with compassion for both of you. You're going to need to really build self-soothing practices as well for when they're not able to meet you, for the times that you're both triggered. The grounding techniques, the mindfulness. And, this is when I really say, check out the attachment recovery gym. What a place to be, a place where people can get you, a place where you can turn to. And people are going to, you're just going to describe your situation. And trust me when I say people, they get it. This community gets it. They know how it feels. They've been in that experience. And that itself is so healing. I know that feeling unsupported by this person, the person you care about, it can be so painful. I know, but it's not the end of the world. It can actually be a real turning point for both of you to get clear on communication, for you to manage your expectations, for you to build self-soothing practices. If you're struggling, remember that this is a process. You can develop these skills over time. Our partners aren't here to meet every single need. We need to build up people around us. We need to build up more than just this relationship. So let me remind you, the Attachment Recovery Gym, we have a December offer. This is your opportunity to join for the whole year for £199. It's a great time to join and get started. I always want this membership to be accessible so that you can join from the comfort of your own home without spending thousands of pounds. I really do believe that you deserve a relationship where you feel seen, you feel supported and loved. And I believe that that journey starts with you. Follow me over on Instagram, carly.ann_, and I will see you back here very soon.